Welcome to Page to Screen, the podcast where Nikki and Christina discuss books that were turned into movies and films that were adapted from books. As always, we do remind you that spoilers lay ahead. Now, we invite you to decide with us the age-old question, which is better, the book or the movie?
Much like James Bond at the end of every one of his movies, we're back!
Imagine that.
That'd be weird if I was like, and now we're dead. Welcome back to Page to Screen, Battle of the Bonds. Ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba-da. Joining as always. I won't make the mistake of calling her a double O this time. It's Christina.
Hello, how are you?
I am ready. I am so ready for this one.
Yeah, I am too. It's a different scenario than last time.
Oh, yeah, much. Wowzers. That's all I got.
Yeah, last time, for those who listened and did not listen both, we did the Casino Royale Ian Fleming book compared to the Daniel Craig film from 2006. This time around, we are doing Dr. No, which is a novel written, again, by Ian Fleming, came out in 1958, and then the first Sean Connery Dr. No James Bond film. So exciting. Yeah. It was released in 1962, and it started everything. It started the franchise.
Yeah, it's so funny. Jesse, when we were watching the movie, he was like, wow, Sean Connery really set the bar for these. I was like, well, yeah, because he was the first James Bond. It's kind of hard to not set the bar when you're the first. And this is the first of 7 appearances for Sean Connery as James Bond.
Yeah.
So I think he's up there. I think there's only one other person who's tied with. And I can't remember who. But the fact that we have more, the fact that he's tied with somebody else for James Bond, that makes 14. Then we have, the 5 from Daniel Craig. Like, come on, James, take a nap. Just take a nap.
I mean, I want to know what your general feelings were with the book and the movie.
It's funny. This book, okay, so we made a mistake at the end of the last episode. We were talking about this, and I said, I'm worried that at some point these books are going to start to go chronologically. And we did both agree that we thought this book started it.
No.
From Russia with Love, if anyone wants to actually read all of these in order, From Russia with Love starts the super chronological order for James Bond. And I own the book and I didn't read it. I actually read a quick synopsis so I could figure out why James Bond is in the hospital at the beginning of this one.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that you actually had the book, so that's neat.
Yeah. And I'm glad I looked it up because it made a whole lot more sense at the opening of this book, knowing what he had just gone through. But this book, it's funny for how much action there is. I liked the pacing of Casino Royale better. Does that make sense? Like, the whole ending to this book, I was kind of bored by when you're not supposed to be. There's so much happening, and I was like, oh. And I think it's because they're spending all of our time one-on-one with James towards the end versus in the previous book where it's like a grouping of individuals all together.
I felt like very whelmed. If I didn't have enough time to talk last time, I felt like both the book and the movie for Dr. No gave me kind of like a nothing sandwich.
Yeah, it feels
like 2 pieces of bread and some mayonnaise in the center.
Ew. It just felt weird. And I think we establish who James Bond is in Casino Royale. I mean, it's the first book. We know this character. He's just he's this high class guy, and all the ladies love all the ladies love Bond, and all the men want to be Bond. We got that. I think
Yeah.
the movie does a good job of giving us no offense, Daniel Craig, my Bond. I think Sean Connery is the perfect James Bond. Even though he's Scottish and not English, it doesn't matter. The way that he is described in the books reminds me of Sean Connery, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so strange because yeah, and in the book he's described as having like piercing eyes and black hair.
Yeah.
So Sean Connery's got the black hair, but Daniel Craig has the piercing eyes. So on like a look standpoint, they share a lot of things, and then the two kind of important ones are split between them.
Yeah.
And then honestly, yeah, Sean Connery does kind of actually play Bond to the books better. And one of the ways is he's very violent, he's very rough, and he's not a gentleman. He's just kind of those ways to just be those things. But it's almost like he almost takes a step further because like in this book at the very beginning, James roughs up this woman who's taking his picture. He like bends her arm back.
Oh no, that's
really
the
hard.
other guy.
What?
Quirrell does that. Quirrell.
Well, no, sorry. So Quirrell does it, but James in his head thinks that he doesn't like roughing up women unless it's necessary. And he felt like in this case, it's necessary. If you look at Sean Connery touching women, he's touching them a lot. And what he does, it's very harsh. It's very, like, he's just grabbing women. It's a lot of, like, closed fists when he's, like, touching them. And I just think in my head, like, if James Bond doesn't typically like to rough up women, Sean Connery seems pretty easy to do it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the thing that I find the hardest about James Bond from page to screen is that James isn't supposed to be like a super muscular guy. He's supposed to blend in. Like, that's his whole role, you know? Like, he's not supposed to have like, he's supposed to be extremely good looking, but not so good looking that he stands out. Right. You know? And he's also not super trigger happy in the books as like Daniel Craig plays him in his 5 films. Like that's what I think I liked about Sean Connery is that Sean Connery does a lot of hand-to-hand combat. If that makes sense. Like he's doing a lot of fist fighting. Like he does that thing where he flips that driver over in the dirt. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. Whereas I feel like if Daniel Craig was in the same position, he would have just shot him.
Right.
And even a part that's in the book where James actually shoots somebody, the only time he shoots somebody in the whole book, it's a weird edit choice in the film where I think what he was supposed to be doing was drowning the guy, but we never actually saw it, so I have no idea what happened. It kind of just cut. James, he grabs the guy, and then it cuts to Honey Rider. Oh, don't even get me started. It cuts to Honey, and she's going, oh, and then it cuts back, and James is just, like, letting the body go. And I was like, wait, what did he do? But that's, like, there's that, and then there's the part in the movie where Honey goes to grab James's hand. She grabs his hand, and she goes, oh, your palms are sweaty, too. It's the only time we acknowledge the fact that James Bond is a human being who is also scared. And Daniel Craig doesn't sweat. Daniel Craig doesn't sweat. Like, he did that whole opening scene in Casino Royale, and he wasn't even out of breath.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, I feel like Sean Connery is more of an appropriate book adaptation, even though he seems a little bit more rough around the edges in some areas. Mm-hmm. I feel like he kind of gets it.
I feel like he's more one note. And I didn't get, like, the stuff that I really liked with Casino Royale, where James Bond is kind of questioning his place in the world. You don't really get into his head like that here.
Yeah.
And in that way, you know, that personal, intimate kind of way. And I feel like that James Bond, I don't see Sean Connery questioning that at all.
Well, I wonder if they had started with Casino Royale as the first James Bond movie with Sean Connery, if we would have received more of that. Because that's really the main reasoning, you know?
it's so interesting because a lot of people complain with Spider-Man and Batman, like, oh, do we really need to see Uncle Ben die? Do we really need to see Batman's parents die again? We've already seen it. And I tend to sometimes say, like, we don't necessarily need an origin story for everybody all the time. But to start out with James Bond, there's nothing really wrong with James Bond in this movie. He is James Bond, you're right. Like, this is book Bond that you're seeing. But he just feels so more, I don't know, like, I don't care as much when it's not an actual, like, character piece.
Yeah.
And I think Casino Royale is. Casino Royale questions what makes a man this way and what will cement a man being this way. Whereas this, it's just, no, he's just a shitty guy. All of the things I could step aside and not be offended by with Casino Royale, it just feels like the Band-Aid's been taken off and now I'm only seeing the flaws without seeing anything of interest.
Well, I think it also goes into the fact that it feels like they mushed together.
Yeah.
It feels like they mushed together the opening of Casino Royale a little bit into...
They really
Dr.
did,
No.
and they're all playing at the table.
Well, they're all playing Baccarat, and I was like, I saw that wooden panel come out, and I was like, you can't do that. You're not doing...
You stole it.
Yeah, I was like, listen, you either do Casino Royale or you do Dr. No. You can't do both. But I think that was an interesting way to set up James Bond because it gives you, especially for me having read both the books, I was like, I see what you're doing. I've got you. I've got your number, James. Sean.
It's 007.
Yeah. Hold on, let me call that and see what bling 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 bling.
I actually, because I can hear myself talking shit already, but I have to say though that as hardcore as I am right now for the Daniel Craig ones, the minute that Dr. No starts and you hear the James Bond theme, I'm smiling ear to ear. When Sean Connery shows up at that table and it's the reprise of the music, smiling ear to ear. I'm like so happy. I love it. And I love him. He looks great in a suit. The music is perfect. He's like suave. He's cool. He's sexy. He's dangerous. He's got the little, rapport with the other chick at the table who's the first Bond chick. Like, very cool.
Yeah.
And I love it. And like the reason why the Daniel Craig movies and Casino Royale and the whole Baccarat table and stuff were able to run is because, or were able to fly is because this one ran.
Yeah.
And it's just so impressive. And for like a cinematic moment, it's just, what a fucking welcome to a character and a show up of a character. It's iconic.
Oh, it's super iconic. Like when he says Bond, James Bond for the first time, you get, I kind of got chills. I was like, oh, it's happening. And what I find so interesting is I think that a lot of people are so used to what we know today as traditional James Bond, especially with the openings, with the gun barrel opening, which in this film, it's actually not Sean Connery as James Bond shooting that gun at the beginning. We don't have dancing naked ladies in the credits. We don't even have an actual movie theme. It's crazy to think that there was a period of time when that wasn't even a thing. The main theme was James Bond's theme.
And it was so funny watching it because I've seen Dr. No before, but it's definitely been a long time since I watched it beginning to end. And it felt so weird that wasn't in it. It's kind of like, as a Star Wars fan, when you watch A New Hope and there's no Imperial March, you just assume it's there because it's Darth Vader's theme, but it's not in A New Hope. Yeah. It's like gone. So it almost feels weird. It feels like you're walking outside without shoes on.
Yeah. It's bizarre, but at the same time, I loved it. It feels...
Me too.
It feels so fresh.
It does. It feels like the beginning of something.
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was.
It blew my mind.
But like you, I haven't seen the older James Bond in a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it was fun to go back and revisit these and be like, I remember you. But I just want to say I love the opening to this movie. It is so 60s that it makes me giddy. All the flashing dot lights, and it's like
I love the flashing dots.
I was like, I can't with this. Like, I want this continuously playing on a loop in my living room. like it's art. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the James Bond theme song is one of the greatest theme songs of all time. It's just so good.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been replicated and duplicated and all of that 100 times.
The minute you hear it, it's just like Star Wars. It's those first 3 notes get you, like every time. There's no denying it. You know exactly what it is.
I didn't know either that I guess I just assumed that the opening with the gun barrel was some sort of like filter or a layered effect that they did. I didn't know that they actually shot it down a fucking gun barrel.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
It's insane. I was just like, I want to do that. No, I don't. I don't want to shoot anybody. I am like James. I don't shoot people. That's what I find so interesting about James Bond, especially the earlier ones, is everything is done so practically. In the movie, there's a scene with a tarantula, and they actually had it crawling on the stunt double, legit. Like, that's not like a fake rubber body or something that they threw under there. Like, they made this movie on the cheap, and the reason they started with this one is because it's all in one location. That's why we didn't get Casino Royale first, because he moves to a secondary location. The only reason we got this is because it all takes place in Jamaica.
I have to admit that the budget did kind of get to me with Dr. No. It reminds me of like Batman 66 or and actually the tarantula scene. I think that there's a scene similar to that in the Dr. Goldfoot movie. And they're all like in the 1960s, like early mid 1960s. And it felt like weird and kind of hokey, and the whole last ending in the that like big area, it just looks like the same type of big factory or big machine sound stages where they would film stuff on for Batman 66.
Oh yeah, it's very like stock, like whatever was available they used. It's very much like a college student's version of James Bond, but it works, for what it is. I mean, comparing it to Daniel Craig's stuff with you have to start somewhere. Yeah. And unfortunately we got warehouses, and James Bond now has like actual like Aston Martins, but it's fine. I'm not complaining.
Well, it's just so weird that North by Northwest predates it, and North by Northwest I think is comparable to in certain ways to the new Bond series, and it does have this like big scale and scope and big locations, and I mean, and it's fine with Dr. No because Dr. No is set in one spot, so it's kind of like the perfect one for the first movie and one with a lower budget, but it just feels like so much more little.
Yeah, and I feel like in addition to being, I mean, the internet can correct us if we're wrong. I feel like this was Eon Films' first big budget film, which might also be why, for a production company, they didn't want to put too much money behind it. I know that there were people who thought it would be too sexual. Too sexual. Wait, one of the things I read it was too sexual and too British. I think it was, hold on a sec.
I don't think are usually complained about in the same sentence.
On June 20th, 1961, United Artists agreed to finance this movie after many studios rejected it on the grounds of too British and too blatantly sexual.
That's so funny.
We too are too British and too blatantly sexual, so...
I've got a small chin, bit bigger top teeth. It's can confirm.
We love tea.
I'm drinking tea right now.
Quiz me on the royal family.
That's a trigger subject for you, so we can't get into that.
I got feelings.
Well, another weird thing with Dr. No that I think goes with that they were hesitant to even do it. It's the smaller company doing it. When two things I think play into that too. One is that Ian Fleming took, like, this book the basis of it was written by somebody else. And then he took it for the like launching pad of a James Bond novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then they chose Dr. No out of all of the books because other books had been published by this point. They picked this one because they thought it was the safest one and the least offensive out of the group. So I know.
Sorry.
I know. No, but you take what you said and then those two facts together, and it's just like a surprisingly mundane James Bond film.
Yeah.
And a surprisingly mundane James Bond book.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because James is pretty mundane in this book.
Yeah.
There's a part in this book where I could not stop laughing because oh my goodness, I hope I can find it. I am like training again for, another half marathon. I'm doing the training. I'm trying my best. And then James talks about his training in this book. And oh my God, here we go.
The training montage made me laugh because that's exactly what I was thinking. I was waiting for the 80s music to start playing for his montage.
James Bond's training, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, according to this book and according to James Bond, his training is what I just want to do on vacation. Like I don't get it. He's like, they ate their breakfast while Bond fixed his training routine. Up at 7, swim a quarter of a mile, breakfast. An hour sunbathing, run a mile, swim again, lunch, sleep, sunbathe, swim a mile, hot bath and a massage, dinner and a sleep by 9. That's every person's dream. And Bond is like, oh, can't hang out tonight. I've got training in the morning. Like, you're sunbathing. Sunbathing is his training.
Yeah, sunbathing and swimming.
Sorry. Sunbathing, swimming, and then an afternoon nap and a massage. Like, I don't know. Is this how rich people work out, like, all the time? Like,
it feels like, hey, you guys, everybody remember when we got, like, totally blitzed at July 4th 2 years ago? Turns out we were training to be James Bond.
Yeah. Yes. Like, I can't believe that. I guess every time I go to the beach, I didn't realize I was in James Bond training mode. My God. So I apologize.
And he's waking up at 7 and going to bed at 9:30.
Yeah.
So he's like an English teacher in high school.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's just like, what do you mean that's your training? I mean, this book cracked me up at some points. There are some really funny things in it. Like, that was funny. And then at the beginning of the book, when Em is telling him about the guy who owns when he's telling about Dr. No, who owns this island full of bird poop, and he goes, he asks him, he goes, no, as in yes?
I did like that you and I, like, our one knock to James Bond in the last one was that maybe he's not so good of a spy. And this time around, it begins immediately with one of his coworkers is a really bad spy. And then James Bond arrives, and the very first thing he does when he steps foot off the plane is get his picture taken by somebody.
This book is so bizarre because he is both good spy, bad spy throughout the entire thing.
He does so many things that is like horrible spy work.
Like, he doesn't check any of his rooms when he goes into the hotel.
No.
I mean, I'm not a spy and I check my hotel rooms. Like, what's going on? Then he gets the basket of fruit and he's like, okay, now I'm a spy. But like, he gets to Dr. No's island and eats the food. And I'm like, it's probably poison. What are you doing? And he's like, well, don't want to let it go to waste. I'm going to drink this coffee. What happens? They were drugged. Bond, come on.
This is the thing, and I blame Ian Fleming for it. I think it's a matter of convenience. Like, if it's convenient for James Bond to just grab a piece of fruit and eat it, it's fine.
Yeah.
But then the minute that he needs to get poisoned, he looks at it like, uh-oh.
Not gonna trick me now. I'm James Bond super spy. Like, he's just like a bumbling fool who gets lucky. Like, if someone told me that somebody had come up to my room with a basket of fruit, especially after a meeting where it was very hostile, I would be like, I'm not eating that. But I also wouldn't, like, dig around looking for holes in my fruit. I would have just thrown it away. Or put it out in the hallway and be like, someone else can have it. Oops, now they're dead, my bad. Because Bond drinks food, he drinks drinks and eats food, not a care in the world, doesn't worry that he's going to get captured at some point because he always does. You think that he would learn at this point that, I could get captured at any minute. I might as well drink all the alcohol now. And then, like, when it's like you said, when it's convenient for him, he's a super spy. Like, he comes up with the whole idea to have two other people replace him and Quarrel in that car. Not a care in the world if they get murdered, but he was like, get two strangers off the street who look kind of like us, dress them up and have them take that car away. Great spy move. Bad spy move. Getting your picture taken at the airport. Good spy move. Getting that fruit taken out of your office. Bad spy move. Constantly telling people on the phone what your plan is. Without thinking it could be bugged. James, what is wrong with you?
I also think that at the beginning when he's talking to M and M's like, listen, you just been through a lot of shit, so we're going to send you somewhere where it's not going to be so crazy. It's like, okay, cool. Is that not the beginning to like every James Bond story at this point now? You just went through some crazy shit. Don't worry. We're going to give you, kid gloves, training wheels, then you'll be fine.
It's so funny because James is always like, I would love the easy job. And then he puts himself in a situation that's not easy. It's like, oh my God, James. I think we need to clarify something too. Between the book and the movie, the plot is completely different.
Yeah. And it's yes. It's like, it's weird because a lot of the main things, like the villain, the Quarrel guy, the location, like a lot of stuff is actually surprisingly similar.
Yeah.
It's like the exact same. Even like Honey Rider, really the only difference is her nose. She's supposed to have like a broken nose, but even like she's got the shells, she's got the bikini, she's got a little boat.
Well,
like,
no, she's supposed to be naked.
But then what?
She's supposed to be naked.
Well,
I mean, we're not gonna go there, but Honey's supposed to be super naked, but
super naked, and they do give her like she's basically topless in one part of the movie, but just has that like white shirt over it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the stuff's similar except for the plot.
Yeah. And it let me set a scene for you. Jesse and I were on the couch watching this movie and I was like, this is so different. So different. So different. Because this is my first time reading the book. I was like, what is happening? What is going on? And Jesse's like, well, what happens in the book? I was like, do you really want me to tell you? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, buckle in. Because this is wild. The main reason that Bond is involved in the dealings with Dr. No. Yeah, he's supposed to go down there and find out what happened to Strangeways and his secretary, who they all think just ran away together to fall in love. Cool. But then
Bond doesn't. Bond actually is the one that is backing him up, saying like, no, he loves his country, he would never do that, or at least if he did, he'd leave a note.
Yeah, or like he wouldn't have tried, he would have gone in the dead of night, he would have gone in the middle of a bridge game. Right. I don't know how bridge works, so I don't know if you're allowed to leave in the middle of it, but cool. And then they're like, don't worry about it, but we did get this note from these people in America because, we own part of Jamaica, but this island is a privately owned island, so it's just weird, blah, blah, blah. And you can tell M isn't interested. This birding society in America is concerned about the birds on this island full of bird poop.
Yeah.
That's it. That's why Bond goes to Jamaica. Because Dr. No has half of an island. Not the whole island. He wants the whole island. He has half of an island, and these pink, long-billed birds that people thought were dying out were living and thriving on the other side of the island, and all of a sudden they started dying out again, and these American white people were very angry that the birds were dying out, and they wanted to know why. And they demanded that the Jamaican government do something about the birds. So they sent James Bond to look into the birds. And that is the plot of Dr. No.
When you and I were figuring out, because we had talked about doing a James Bond book, but we were trying to figure out like what exactly we were going to do, I had looked up Dr. No, and I remember on the Wikipedia, there's a picture of a spoonbill bird on the Wikipedia. And in my head, I thought, well, I've seen Wikipedia have the wrong picture before. I'm certain that a roseate spoonbill bird has nothing to do with James Bond. I was wrong.
Yeah, super wrong. Because that's
super wrong.
100% of this book is these
Yeah.
stupid birds. When I tell you, the reason I was bored
Wait,
is because of that.
I'm sorry. Wait, also, in the book, it's not a tarantula, it's a centipede.
Oh, yeah, but it's like a 5-inch long centipede.
Yeah.
And the description of that centipede, ladies and gentlemen, this centipede, James is awoken by it, and as you learned from the last book, he sleeps naked. And there's a part where this centipede is climbing up his thigh, and then it stops, and he's like, is it seeking warmth? What if it crawls into my crevices? And when I say this book had me rolling, I could not stop laughing. But then it gets gross because the centipede crawls over his eye. Like, he closes his eyelid, it crawls.
That did have me kind of fucked up.
That was so disgusting. That, and later on, when he tries to leave Dr. No's island, and he has to crawl through that the air vent full of spiders, tarantulas, and he's like stabbing them with his stupid metal pokey stick. I was like, no, I'm not interested in this. Like, this is not what I want.
Again, there's a part where he is climbing through vents in the movie, and it's all very Die Hard-esque, the way he's like climbing through, and then he has to like push out the grate and everything. So it's weird. It's like the movie's actually not a terrible adaptation because they do take a lot. It's just like done differently.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's a terrible adaptation because they even took something from the very beginning of the book where, following the events in Russia, in From Russia with Love, James's gun is considered no longer usable because it jammed on him.
Right.
And the whole beginning of the book is him getting a new gun from who is soon going to be referred to as Q later on. And that scene is direct.
Yeah.
Like, they lifted it directly from the book and put it right into the movie. And I thought that was such an interesting... without even talking about what happened to his gun to make him need a new one.
Yeah, and I like how that's kind of the like beginning point of the whole what gadgets are going to be given to James Bond this time around. I just think that is such like a very simple trope, but it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to see the start of it, and that it starts so practically.
Yeah.
Which is your gun jammed, here's a new one. And it's going to become like, just in case you're in a situation where you're in space and you need to have gravity applied in one section that sends you to the other part, but then the bad guy gets sent out the window, here you go.
Yeah.
Just in case.
I'd be so worried. Like, early Bond, I'm not worried to use a pen in your office. Later on Bond, I have to be like, is one of these a bomb?
Well, the problem with you, Nikki, is that you're a very nice, kind, caring person. So if you got those bananas and you're like, what if these are poisoned? Let me just put it outside my door. Maybe a neighbor will take it. Yeah. And then all your neighbors are dead. And then you're like, I'm a little nervous to use this pen. Here, do you want it?
Everything.
There you go.
I would be like back in the old English days, I'd be like, hey, you squire, eat this. What does that taste like?
Oh, great.
Are you alive? Cool. Thanks. Like, every restaurant I ate at as James Bond, I'd be like, Q, listen, I don't need more guns. I need a way to detect poison in my drinks real fast. Like, help me out. Like, that would be my one thing. I'd open up, like, I'd look like one of those, like, flashers. I'd be opening up my trench coat, and inside would be, like, different drops to put into my food to determine what poison is in it.
So you're no better than... in the Santa Claus, when all he's worried about is how Santa's going to be protected from falling off a roof.
Yeah, 100%. Because at this point, James should know you're going to get captured. And chances are, someone's going to try and drug you. Maybe it'd be good if you found out what drugs they're going to drug you with first, you know? Like, or maybe be like, hey, Q, here are the drugs we know that the Russians have. Can you make antidotes before I go? And I'll just pop one. I'll pop one of each. we'll see which one works. Like, help.
You know, James Bond also swims naked.
Yeah.
So he swims 3 times a day naked and then sleeps naked. The man is clothed less time than he is naked.
Yeah. And yet in the movies, he wears super expensive clothing. Like,
he does.
It blows my mind how much money they spend on suits for James Bond when given the facts. He doesn't need it. And I don't think he wears underwear either. Because...
probably not.
Well, there's a part in this book where James talks about... First of all, James Bond is book 5 Harry Potter annoying in this book about heat. He is complaining constantly. It's too hot. I'm so sweaty. I sweat through my shirt. No one cares, James. It's Jamaica. Stop wearing a 3-piece suit. He shows up to his hotel room and he changes his clothes. He takes a cold shower, which is a very James Bondy thing. He takes hot baths and cold showers, in case you want to live your life like James Bond for a minute. But he talks about getting changed after his cold shower, and he puts on like a blue shirt and linen pants. And he talks about the feel of the linen pants on him. And I was like, did you not put on undergarments, James? For someone who gets shot at a lot, don't you think maybe like an added layer could have been... I mean, I don't know. I don't know how much it would protect you, but like if I were James Bond, I'd be wearing like a cup and underwear, you know?
Well, that's the thing about him swimming and sleeping naked that I find amusing is that at any moment someone could start attacking you. Like, wouldn't you think that it would make more sense to like sleep in cargo pants filled with thumbs in every pocket?
It's uncomfortable but practical.
That's what I would be wearing.
Are you kidding me? I'd be wearing like, you know, the vests they give you when you go to the doctors to get an X-ray. I'd have one of those on me and a helmet, like not like a helmet, but like medieval armor. Like, I don't want to die in my sleep, James, and especially not naked. Like, even just underwear would be fine. Like,
well, why don't you actually go ahead and explain the differences in the plot before we get into some of the like the crazy parts?
Like how...
Yeah, it's the same villain, but like the actual.
You want to wait? Are we going to talk about a touch of racism?
A touch.
A touch of racism. I'm sorry. Wait,
what did little touch?
Tanged with rape was last time, so this is tanged with racism. I don't want to say certain words, but as it is in Jamaica, I'm sure a lot of people can assume how some people were described. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, Dr. No is Chinese. Full apologies for descriptions of these characters, the way they are talked about in this book. I mean, James does a lot of people refer to Dr. No as the Chinaman, not as the Chinese Dr. No who owns an island full of bird poop. They never refer to him as that, which is how I would refer to him. There's a whole last chapter called Slave Time. Like, I feel gross.
Yeah.
There's a lot, it's weird because the hierarchy in Jamaica here is not fully understandable. Do you get what I mean, Christina? Like, where it's...
Yeah, no, I completely understand it. It also feels like, because some of the descriptors in Casino Royale and in this book, I think are actually wrong. Like, I don't actually think he knows what he's even talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's a part in here where he refers to, like, some group of people as, like, dark Asians.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that is. Like, I don't know what dark Asian means. Because I don't think that he even cared enough to know about the type of cultures that he was making fun of.
Yeah.
So it's really weird. It's racist to the point where it's so ambiguously racist that I don't even know who he's being racist against.
It's kind of like, who do you hate? Like, what are you trying to say to me here? And then it is a little awkward when we get to the movie, where it is a white...
Oh, is it?
It's just, just a tad bit weird when there's a white guy pretending to be Chinese, but it's okay, right?
And a white girl pretending to be Asian.
Well, not only that, but then you have the girl who plays Honey.
Yeah.
They dubbed her. That's not her voice because she didn't have an accent.
Nope.
So,
it's really bizarre. It's really weird, and it's also got this kind of this really weird British nationalism.
Yes.
That's very strange for a character who's never in England. And so it's like you've got what?
Yeah, that's true. Like, why are you so for Crown and Country when you're never in your country?
You're never in your country. And it like he's always like so condescending to people from other countries, and then he kind of and it's carried over into the movie too. Like his whole relationship with Coral is kind of weird, and it just feels like whatever kind of like actual point that he had in Casino Royale about recognizing where you are in the world and that being gone in Dr. No, it's just like you're going into these other countries fucking up shit and then wondering why nobody likes you.
Yeah.
I don't there's kind of an easy A to B explanation there.
For someone who's so British, that felt so American.
Yeah.
And I wonder...
colonizers will be colonizers.
Pish posh. I wonder if we should go back and read From Russia with Love. And I think that might change... I think that might bring about a different understanding of why James might be acting a little bit weirder in this book.
Probably, yeah.
Because... from what I don't want to spoil it. From what I read in the description, yeah, he, like, it ends on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So we kind of already spoiled it by reading this book. Spoiler alert, they think he's dead. But he's alive. We read this book, so there we go. I wonder if that would add into it. Because there's, and to the point about Coral, I love their relationship in the book. Because in the movie, they have none.
They don't, yeah.
In the book, we find out that Coral and James had previously worked together 5 years ago. And they did some weird, like, I don't know, National Treasure thing where they found, like, a bunch of gold or something. I don't know. They never really talk about it. And I don't think it's in any of the other books. I don't think there is a period of time in the books where he is in Jamaica finding treasure with Coral. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But it didn't happen in Casino Royale, so I'm assuming it's not there. And they have a good working relationship. What happens to Coral in the book kills me. It's so sad, so depressing, and it shouldn't have happened. And he knew it was going to happen. And that's what breaks my heart a little bit. But their relation, like, James really looks out for him. And in the movie, it's so not there. And he just, like, treats him as, like, just an accessory, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it just an added-on piece.
I think what's more than that is that it feels like a character who is replaceable. And I feel like Coral has more of a personality and a presence in the book. Whereas in the movie, it's just like yet another sidekick. Yeah.
Once again, I will say, we've read books before where there are accents involved.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't need to put an accent. It's hard to read. I mean, when we did The Commitments, it was funny because you can still read it and understand it. This was kind of hard. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was...
Yeah, and I was trying to find... There was one part that I was like, what? But I don't think I made a note.
Ian Fleming wrote Coral as if we were reading Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
And it upset me because, yes, there are people with a lot of thick accents, but fun fact, for any author out there, whether you're writing a book or a movie script or TV script, even a commercial, if you just say that they have a thick accent, we're going to understand that we're supposed to read this with the understanding that there is an accent there. You don't have to write it. Not always. It does not always translate correctly, trust me.
Yeah, and I just found a page that has a decent amount of it. And the very first sentence, I can't read. I can't read it out loud because it's so problematic. It's pretty racist.
Yeah.
I can't read this.
the whole thing with, what was it, the love mound?
Yeah.
Do you remember this?
Yep.
Which is, it's not what everyone thinks it is. It's it is the fleshy part underneath of your thumb. Is that? Yes, I think that's right. The fleshy bit under your thumb. Quirrell pinches a girl there, basically creating like a blood blister under the skin. And there's a whole thing about this, what they call the love mound of your hand. I had no idea. I had to go back and reread it like 3 or 4 times. I was like, what are you saying? Like, what is happening here? And it gets very weird and bizarre. And I'm like, I don't want it. I'm just gonna, next page, next chapter. Let's find more racism somewhere else.
I feel like Ian Fleming was one of those guys maybe that was just like at bars, like hearing people say the craziest shit. And then he'd go and tell a friend of his and they're like, what are you stop talking. And then he just put it in his books.
Yeah.
Like he always has these weird things that it's like, where did you hear that? Where's that from?
Yeah, it's like he's oh, well, I heard it on the internet. That is Ian Fleming. I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. No, don't put that in a book. That's not how this works. Don't do that. That's how it felt. Like, there was just some weird stuff. So while the book is about birds, people, we didn't even talk about what the movie's about. There's just such a weird, it's so weird. The book is about birds. James is there for birds. Remember that. In the movie, he is specifically sent there because of rocket ships from Cape Canaveral, Florida. The two aren't even closely related. I don't know how we got to where we're at, but it makes a lot of sense considering, it's the 1960s. We're having space wars with Russia. Wow, a war with Russia. Who would have thunk? I will say, reading these 2 James Bond books, I just want to say, at this period of time, has been extremely awkward, but also unsurprising at what the Russians are doing in these books.
It's really weird because I remember like when we were kids and the whole Russian stereotype thing was like, oh no, that's a stereotype. Don't laugh at that. Don't play into it. And then now we've like read 2 in a row where it's like the Russians are evil and all they want is war. And it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Now I'm kind of like, oh, was it really a stereotype if it was true? Not all Russians, I guess.
Hashtag not all Russians.
Yes. But the ones in James Bond's book, are giving me some eerie vibe. I haven't even, while we've been reading these books, I haven't really been able to watch the news, because it just feels so weird to read the Russian secret plots and then watch the news and see what's happening. So yeah, the basis of the movie is that they're worried that what Dr. No can do is mess up radio signals for rocket ships. And that's,
which actually is that is kind of scary.
And it was so scary that it was actually a thing that the U.S. government was actually worried about when they were sending astronauts to space. They were worried that somebody was going to purposely crash their spacecrafts, which another reason why I'll never go to space. Like, I don't want.
Well, and it turns out that they had reason to worry because Dr. No was up to shenanigans in Jamaica.
Yeah, on that poop island. The poop island doesn't exist in the movie, everyone. I was very depressed by that. But
I hope he doesn't try to take over my car because it too is covered in bird shit right now.
He's going to start selling your guano. Guano Island. That's what they refer to it as sometimes. Crab Key, the island of bird poop. Like,
oh, look at that Honda CR-V. It's filled with nitrates that I could use for the ground to grow produce.
Oh my God, if you start scraping bird poop off your car and putting it in your yard, I'm done with you. If someone comes up to you and is like, what are you doing? Oh, I learned it in this book called Dr. No. Have you heard of it? It's rich in vitamins and minerals for my vegetables.
Don't say I never learned anything. I learned that you always need to wear red panties just in case someone tries to abduct you by taking your dress and putting it over your head, and that bird poop is very important.
Yeah, and don't sleep naked.
And don't sleep naked.
These are the things we learned from James Bond. Like, who would have thunk? Who would have thunk? Just I don't want to say that plot for the movie is too different from the book because I'm trying to explain the plot in the book, like the whole evil business in the book gets kind of convoluted because Dr. No wants to do science experiments on people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why James has to crawl through the escape room, like the escape room from hell, to get out of the island. But then he also can do what is explained in the movie, and he wants to sell that technology. He's working with the Russians, first of all, of course, but he talks about being able to sell that to other countries because his island is in like the perfect location, and
Yeah.
it's very convoluted. But it's okay, you guys. He dies under a pile of bird crap, so don't worry about it.
Well, there is like it's kind of it's the thing where I do kind of like the go to this island. There's only one little thing. There's a guy who went missing, figured it out, come back home.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that there's like a crazy bird poop, Dr. Moreau, weird situation going on. And then Bond gets all wrapped up into that. Like, I do always kind of like that. It's like so basic, but it's sort of like a fun bait and switch kind of a thing. But the thing that I think gets me, and it's more obvious in the movie than it is in the book, because I think the book has a better handling of the like steam. Like the book never really loses steam the way the movie does, and I feel like the movie does a few times where the runtime definitely feels like a 2-hour movie, because once you get there it should be a little bit scarier and a little bit more going on and kind of more like fucked up, and I don't see any of that in the movie. It just feels kind of like, oh, now they're hiding from gunfire in this island, and now they're running over there.
Yeah, it kind of drags. The film drags.
Yeah.
And the film drags, and then there's just some weird stuff that, I don't know, James does some stuff from page to screen that are in the book credited to other people. And that's what that feels kind of funky. In the book also, the island isn't radioactive. I just wanted to make that clear. The island's not radioactive. The radioactive rock situation and the scientists, that's not a thing. But there are things that, like, Honey, who I think is only called Honey because Ian Fleming was like, what's the easiest thing to remember? Not Catherine, not Elizabeth. Let's just give her a pet name. We'll call her Honey. Because it felt awkward every time James was like, Honey, go to sleep. I was like, don't tell her. Don't give her a pet name. And then was like, oh, no, that's her real name. But Honey is really smart.
Hi, my name's Baby Doll. My best friend is Sweetie.
Yeah.
This is our sister. Why don't you try smiling?
Yeah. It's just like, for having such a silly name, she is very smart. And she knows about where to hide. She knows where to go. And then it was weird to see her tricks. Like, she's the one who tells them, like, get the bamboo reeds. You can hide under the water and use those to breathe. And then in the movie, it was James Bond who came up with that idea.
I gotta say, with Honey, and the name fucking Honey Rider is still her name in this.
Yep.
I was kind of a little shook. She was not just a bimbo. She was actually and then she, like, at the end when they're all they're with Dr. No and stuff, like, she escapes. And then the whole bit with her nose is that she was, like, raped. So her nose is messed up because of this, like, violent trauma in her past. And then the cool part is that at the very end of the book, when everything's good and they're kind of, like, together romantically, she says that she wants to fix her nose, and James Bond says it's fine.
Yeah.
What?
Which is interesting because throughout the entire book, like you said, James has this white guy entitlement where he's like, oh, you'd look so pretty with, like, you're beautiful, but you'd be the most beautiful girl in Jamaica if you fixed your nose. Why don't you just go to America? They can fix it there. And she's like, with what money? I'm selling seashells. And he was like, oh, what? And then he thinks to himself, "Oh, when all this is over, I'll get it fixed for her." It's like, don't come in. It's so colonialism of him to just be like, "I'll come in and fix it." It's like, don't do that. And she wants to be a call girl.
I
forgot
have
about
like
that.
the giggles because there is a funny line, and in the movie she goes like, "What? Are you kidding me? These seashells, they go for $50 in Miami."
Yeah.
I love that line.
She's
They go
trying
for
to-
$50 in Miami.
She's trying to hide him from James. Like, don't touch my seashell. But it's in the book. It plays differently because you find out like she's 20 in the book, and we know that because her family died while she was young. The house burnt down. She was left with her nanny, who died when she was 15, and she says that was 5 years ago. We have a 20-year-old girl fending for herself, whose only education is reading the encyclopedia, wants to be a call girl, and sells seashells by the seashore. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She sells seashells in Miami. Well, to a dealer in Miami. I'm sorry.
Yeah, hold on. No, this is important. This is what I was trying to think about last night, okay? She sells the seashells to a dealer who then sells them for $50 in Miami.
Yeah.
Okay? So that means that he's making a profit off of the $50, and he is making up for the transport of the seashells, which means that she is selling them for less than $50 a pop. I'm going to guess that she's selling them $25, $30 max.
See, she sells seashells. I'm sorry. I didn't even think of that till now. She does sell seashells. But like when you think about it, okay, in the book she's selling these rare seashells because they're a certain color pink. In the movie, she doesn't realize that what she's selling in Miami is radioactive. She's turning everyone into like Spider-Man in Miami.
Holy shit, I didn't think about that.
God forbid a small child, because as they are wont to do, will lick that. God forbid your dog licks that and suddenly you've got like some supersonic like space puppy. Like, what are you supposed to do with that when your child and your dog both lick your radioactive seashell?
So you're saying that there's some sort of like alternative timeline when like Miami by like the 90s is just ruined. It's like decimated. It's just like monster people being made down there, and it all falls back to Honey Ryder collecting seashells in Jamaica.
Yes, the Golden Girls are all superheroes, like protecting Shady Pines for some reason. Like, there's like magical cheesecake going on. Like, it's a mess. It's a mess. Don't go to Miami.
Honey, why are you looking at your shell so weird? Well, I found a pearl, but it's got 3 legs and an arm.
It's just like, and it's never brought up. At no point in that movie is Honey like, oh my God, these are radioactive. James doesn't tell her. She's been in and out of that water looking for seashells.
Yeah.
She's
radioactive.
Oh my God, James. This explains why James Bond just replicates himself.
See, he doesn't watch out if his bananas are poisoned, and he puts his dick in things without questioning, is she radioactive?
Yeah, he puts his dick in radioactive stuff. Like, this is nuts. Because I will say, what's so funny about this movie is, besides the radioactive seashells that it's funny to think about now, is how much of this movie is in Austin Powers.
It's so hard, Nikki. It's so hard because I have definitely seen Austin Powers more often in the last 10 years than I have Dr. No. So at this point, when you see the two of them on the little
the conveyor,
pulley, naked, like, it's just Austin Powers. It's so funny.
That cracked me up. And then when Dr. No walks into the room and goes, $1 million, I was like,
Yeah, that part's funny, and then the whole like ending is just like Austin Powers.
It's so funny. It's so funny. I want to watch Austin Powers now. Like, it's it's so like, if we were gonna do an adaptation of like, if we were gonna compare those two, that is basically screen to screen. It's so funny.
Yeah.
I was waiting for James Bond to start peeing on that conveyor.
No, it's so funny, and I think that with Dr. No, it also plays into what we talked about not being in Casino Royale and what we were happy wasn't in Casino Royale, where like the villain becomes so cool and big, and that takes more focus than what James Bond is thinking in a scene or what James Bond is going through. And I feel like Dr. No, the villain, is just also very iconic, and he looks just like Dr. Evil.
Yes.
And like he's part of, you know, this idea that you have in your head of like the big evil villain, and they're vaguely foreign. They've got like weird clothing. Then later on, you've got the cat and the guy with the bowler hat throwing a shoe. Like,
yeah,
it's all just like so ingrained in pop culture, and now it's like almost funny. That's another reason why I like the Daniel Craig ones, because they took all of that and instead it's like Dave Bautista doing it. It's like they took it and they made it serious, even though it's impossible to take it seriously, because I've got Michael Myers doing it in my head. Or Mike Myers, not Michael Myers.
Oh my God.
Great. We're never going to stop giggling now.
Oh my God, you just created my new Halloween costume.
Yes, do it. I love it.
I'm doing it. Oh my God, a couple's costume where I wear Austin Powers suit, but a Michael Myers mask.
Yes, perfect.
But then whoever I'm with, Jesse or you, wears the Michael Myers costume with an Austin Powers mask.
No, Jesse can do that. And what I'm going to be radioactive honey rider with my seashells.
Well, that explains Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, doesn't it?
Exactly.
I mean,
same suit.
She is wearing like the same suit in that movie.
It's the same
right?
suit.
I think it's her. I think that's Honey Rider. With Dr. No, once again, we get a weird moment in the book, and this all brings me back to the Daniel Craig ones, where Daniel Craig is so close to kissing all of his villains. Just kiss. Just kiss for me. Because the book, once again, gets oddly... There's this weird homoerotic part of the book that was just... Like when you hold someone's hand for too long when you handshake. Yeah. That was it. Like, so James and Honey are drugged with this mystery coffee. And then it's like morning time when they're drugged. And around 10 o'clock, Dr. No with his claw hand comes in to their room and goes over to Honey's bed, takes a sheet down and stares at her. She's laying there naked in bed, and he is staring at her body. Just like, okay, that's weird. Then he covers her back up. And they basically... Oh, he also examines her with a flashlight. That was the other thing. He runs a flashlight over her naked body. Very bizarre. But it's kind of like done and done. Then we get to James. And it goes into a little bit more detail about him.
Yeah.
He scrutinized every line, every shadow on the dark, rather cruel face that lay drowned, almost extinct on the pillow. He watched the pulse in his neck. He is literally analyzing our sleeping naked James Bond. Like, he gauged the curve of the muscle on Bond's arms and thighs and looked thoughtfully at the hidden strength in the flat stomach.
Yeah.
It got a little weird. And this is...
I like it.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong at all. But everything leading up to this paragraph...
Yeah.
Was like, blah, blah, blah. And then you got to this one paragraph and you're like, I'm sorry, what is going on here? Hello.
I like it. I think that stuff is like so cool, and it is like because I'll go ahead and ruin like one of the last scenes. Like actually, really, I still don't. I kind of like these books, and I'm gonna keep reading them because there is something to them that I like that's just darker than I thought would be in these books, and there's something so voyeuristic about that scene, and I like when there are scenes with voyeurism because that's what we are. I mean, right now you and I are spending how much time just dissecting, viewing other people doing things. Like we're all voyeurs. When I sit on the couch for 3 hours and watch James Bond, I'm dissecting the cruelty of his fucking abs on the pillow or whatever the hell you just said. I'm doing those things.
The curve of every muscle, the vein in his neck.
Like I'm doing those things. So it's cool to see a villain do it. And sometimes it's the same thing with Jaws. It's scarier to see a villain bring in a pot of coffee and you don't know what the hell he's doing with that coffee. Yeah. It's scarier to see him just staring at Honey like, oh my God, is he going to rape her? Is he going to stab her? What's he going to do? And then he just walks away and it's just like, oh my God, what's he going to do next? All of that is just so uncomfortable. I mean, you just think about, you go to, out to eat somewhere and the waiter just looks at you just a second too long. That alone is enough to make me go, why don't we leave? Yeah. Like, I don't want to
eat here anymore.
But then here, you're forced. He's forced to just lay there.
Yeah. No lie, though, when they get to this elegant prison, I was like, I'm not leaving. You got someone on speed dial to do my nails and my hair? I'm fine. And fresh toiletries. And, okay, sure, the coffee's poisoned, but that's fine. Maybe I'll slip to tea. Yeah, it is, that's the switch in that chapter when we get to that final paragraph and Dr. No is in there just like staring at their bodies. That's the one part in the book, like there are some weird things that happen in this book. Like James fights an octopus, but
he does.
He fights a giant octopus. Which, I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to view that one way or the other, but to me, I thought it was just straight up an octopus.
This book has everything.
It was scary. You're right. It's scary to have somebody just walk into your room. I mean, that's a fear of mine just staying in a hotel room, period. Like, could someone just, like, because hotels have those keys, master keys. They could get in. They could always get in. I don't want someone using a master key to sneak into my room.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's where it was like, that's why it was so weird, is that everything leading up to it was just so light. And James was like, well, what's the worst that could happen now? Let's eat and drink. And then he got poisoned. He got poisoned and got oogled in the dark. Like, don't like it's kind of scary, James.
Yeah.
But I think that's why later on in the series, like when we get to the Daniel Craig ones, the villains are sort of like, I want to say sexually ambiguous, where we know that they probably lean more one way than the other. But when they're talking to Bond and they're like right in his face, I'm always sitting there going, I want them to kiss.
Well, the Javier Bardem one, I mean, that one,
my God.
It's my favorite Bond villain, and he's very much, it's very homoerotic. And then, oh God, I forgot his name. The last one from Mr. Robot, I really like him.
Oh, yeah.
Something with
Freddie
like an
Mercury.
A and an R.
Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, yeah. What's his name?
Oh,
his name's not Freddie Mercury.
No, it's not, but he played Freddie Mercury.
Rami Malek,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. He was also sexually ambiguous, where he's like a little creepy when she's a little girl, like
yes,
what's going on there. But then it doesn't seem to ever be confirmed that anything was weird. Like he just could be a weird guy.
Yeah. Well, that's the same with Javier Bardem. They could just be weird people, but the way they both lean in towards Bond when they talk to him, all the villains lean in towards Bond, and there's a very body language, you know what I mean? They're all, it's this weird thing where everyone wants to trust Bond, and we're all like, hi, let me tell you my life story.
Listen, I don't, it's not to me to out anybody, but when it comes to Javier Bardem, all I can say is that top is gay. Okay, there's certain things I know and I don't know. He's gay.
I wanted him to kiss Bond so bad that when the movie was over, I was mad. I was
He was too.
I was so angry that they did not kiss. And there's a scene in that movie where you think it's going to happen. You definitely are like, oh, what? And then it doesn't happen, and it's such a letdown. It's like, how could you do this to me?
I like it, and I like that play, and I don't remember anybody like that in the pre-Daniel Craig films.
Well,
I remember there was a little twinge of something with GoldenEye, but it's just interesting to have a character be very much in the rape culture, and that the one fear he has so far is being raped by a man.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, you do that kind of a lot. Maybe think about whether or not you want to keep doing it. So it's like this power play and this sexual play, and I think that sometimes with the villains, like, they increase that just to make them feel uncomfortable, but then other times they fall in it.
Yeah.
They're on the queer spectrum somewhere.
Yeah, it's just really interesting to have it feel so blatant in these books that came out, you know. We're talking late 50s, 60s books where, especially in London, written by a guy who was in the army, you know, like, he fought in wars. He's, you know, he was a womanizer, apparently, in Jamaica. He was sleeping with a bunch of people. And, you know, it's just so weird to see that these characters could be so fluid in these books, and then you get them on screen and it's so rigid.
It would be cooler if James Bond or maybe one of the Bond girls or something were, like, they too were bisexual. So then, you know, they're chained up and then the villain gets all flirty with them and they're like, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, where are we going? And then the villain's like, I was supposed to make you feel uncomfortable with my rapey vibes. Oh, no, I know what the intent was. It's just you are also kind of attractive. I'm kind of attractive. I think this could be hot. Like, just turn the tables on them.
I would love it. I would see it. I would watch it. Like, it's so...
I would watch it.
I'm not mad about it.
You got a weird, like, face thing going on, you know? But I kind of like it.
Yeah. Is it just the face that's weird, or is it everything? Just let me know. Well, I'm tied up here. Like, but that was the other thing that was gross about the book. Not just a weird voyeuristic thing. What was going to happen to Honey?
Yeah.
Had me feeling very, like, American Psycho vibes.
Yeah, agree.
Especially because they were alluding to something happening that was something that was discussed in American Psycho. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know you know what I'm saying. So for those who didn't read the book, Dr. No has Honey stripped and ties her up outside because apparently in Jamaica they have these crabs that will eat anything in their path. That's the thing that didn't make sense to me. I was like, I don't think crabs eat flesh, but I mean, it is now in the movie it's a radioactive island, so who knows?
I was about to say it's a radioactive crab.
So the idea was that she would be in their path and they would eat her. And when Dr. No is explaining this, for those who've read American Psycho, you know where this is going. He explains it in a way, he doesn't say it, but he's like, they would crawl, and they would crawl up and crawl, and then Honey passes out, and I was like, girl, me too. Me too. I need a breather. Like, this is making me want to vom. I never want to go to the beach again. Like, reading that, I was troubled. I was like, what did Ian Fleming hear about in that bar where he also read about love mounds? Like, what are you talking about, sir?
Yeah, love mounds. Yeah, in American Psycho, there's a part with a rat and a female, and the rat eats through the female. So if, you know, let your imagination answer the rest. It's like disturbing, but at least Ian Fleming also put us through something sexually traumatic with James Bond. It's not like he
Yeah.
only has the women in situations like that. Like, that's the one thing I'll give him, is that for all of the misogyny, at least, it's not like that type of violence is only on the women in a sexual way like that. It also happened to James Bond. So far, at least you got that, Ian.
And she's a self-rescuing princess. She gets herself out of that situation. She didn't wait she didn't wait for James Bond to show up. The crabs go around her. They don't even want anything to do with her. I was like, okay, cool. And then she pulls herself out of the stakes in the ground, finds gets dressed, finds clothes, gets dressed, and starts fighting her way out. She wants to find James so the two of them can leave the island together. I was like, Honey in the book is a lot stronger than Vesper was in Casino Royale.
Oh, I agree.
And I think it's so funny that in Casino Royale, the movie, Vesper is stronger than Honey is in Dr. No, the movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame that she wasn't stronger in Dr. No, and because it's like a little funny, like she's just such a strong, fiery character where she's been through all of this awful stuff in her life, and yet she's still able to fight, and she wants survival, and she wants to grow further. Like, she is really into marine biology. Mm-hmm. She basically wants to become a marine biologist and fund herself going to school, so she's selling radioactive seashells for $50 in Miami. It's like, she's got this like strong will, but ultimately in the movie they dumb her down to kind of an idiot. And when she says that thing about the thesaurus, when she's like, I've read every word, I bet I'm smarter than you, and he kind of looks over to the right like, okay, stupid bitch, like you believe that, dum-dum, like
because she even has some of the same lines in the movie that she has in the book. Mm-hmm. And in the book, that monologue that she gives James, she has this monologue where she's like, have you ever seen a mongoose dance? I'm sorry, it sounds very much like Pocahontas. Have you ever seen a wolf cry to the blue corn moon? But she's like...
Well, and it reminded me of, have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
There's a lot of weird questions in movies.
I've seen a mongoose play ballet.
Have you ever seen a mongoose dance? Have you ever seen a female... praying mantis kill her mate after having sex? Have you ever seen a snake that wears a bell that'll wake you up in the morning? I was like, girl, are you talking about an alarm clock? The monologue is a lot stronger than we're making it out. But in the book...
Have you ever ran from an alligator up a tree?
Have you ever zigged when you should have zagged? We're making a lot of fun of it, but in the book, it's actually like a really strong monologue, and James is super taken aback by it, and he's very much like, oh, okay, wait, hold on, like, I don't, like, your life is a lot more interesting than mine, but like, Jesus, like, stop, like, he's like, and then in the book, like, in the movie, she says a couple of the same things, and James is like, in his head, I can clearly see him going, you ever kill two men?
Well, yeah, it's exactly. Like, you almost want James to respond back, like, well, have you ever had your balls sewn back together after Lashif completely destroyed them? No? Okay, then.
Yeah.
Chill out.
It's like, have you ever been shot at numerous times? No? Cool. No, that must be nice to not have to worry about that. Have you ever been poisoned? Just curious. You ever get delivered poison fruit? Just asking. Like,
hey, do you know how to drive?
He should have asked her a question about the other letters in the encyclopedia. She made it to T. Cool.
Have you ever filed your taxes, honey?
Can you tell me what happens under V in the encyclopedia? Because I can't. I bet I'm smarter than you.
It's like, oh, damn, I didn't get that far.
Yeah.
What's vitrupative mean?
Can you do math? How about that, Miss Encyclopedia Britannica? Can you do math?
Hey, honey, how many seashells are left here? Did you ever think about your business and where it's gonna go?
Yeah. For someone who claims to know a lot about business, you really broke it down with the whole, like, importing, exporting charges. And because she doesn't know math, she just knows the encyclopedia, I have a feeling she's making a whole lot less than she thinks she is.
I think so too. I mean, I did the math and I was like, okay, so she's got 6 seashells in her little purse in the movie. And if she's getting 6 okay. if Honey is getting 6 seashells a day, let's say 5 days a week, she's off on the weekends. I mean, she's making well up like $100K a year. So it is possible she could actually seashell her way to a modest income to get herself into marine biology school.
Oh, did you have to take out any student loans to go to school? No, I just sold seashells. I feel like that's gonna be the next thing boomers start saying to kids. Like, well, maybe if you went to an island in Jamaica that's slightly radioactive and picked up some seashells, then you could afford to buy a house. But no, you decided to buy avocados.
Drive over to Macy's and pull out a dress and be like, "This is so beautiful. How many seashells?
How many seashells?
I can't say seashells now."
She sells.
How many seashells is this?
I have 6 seashells. I will trade you 2. My hand has like gigantism holding these tiny shells. Half of me looks like She-Hulk. Hi, do you want one of my seashells? I got them from this weird island.
She-Hulk sells seashells.
Oh goodness. This book and movie were a trip.
Now, who do you think had a better trip to Jamaica? James Bond or Stella?
Stella, hands down. Stella didn't get poisoned.
If you had 2 friends go to Jamaica and one of them brought back
a boyfriend and the other one brought back radioactive seashells?
Yeah, one of them brought back a boyfriend named, William Shakespeare,
yeah.
And the other one brought back Honey selling seashells.
I would trust the one who brought back William more than the one who brought back a girl who sells seashells for business. You know what? All I kept thinking of, too, was, like, she wants to set up this whole business where she sells these, like, seashells. And my first thought was, that's how the Shell Bazaar got to Port St. Lucie, Florida. That makes so much sense now. It was Honey.
See, you know what's weird? Like, Ian Fleming, we talked about the cover of the first edition of Casino Royale and how it's covered in hearts, which I thought was kind of interesting. For this one, he wanted Honey to be on the cover, and it's a really weird cover, too. But he had this idea of her coming out of a shell, like Venus.
Oh, yeah.
But that feels like whatever he's talking about there was not explored in the book.
No, because, like, James mentions it once when Honey comes out of the water and he's seeing her butt, basically, because she's naked. And James says it's like seeing the backside of the birth of Venus. That's it. Done. It's like Ian Fleming, I feel like, came up with the cover before he came up with the line. And it's like, oh, let me throw that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Which copy of the book do you have?
It's a black copy, paperback, and it's got like a tiny little girl in the center.
Yeah,
it says now a great new spine-tingling.
Ooh. No, mine, fun fact, you can find a lot of stuff on the street in Brooklyn. Mine, I picked this one up off the street. It's like an original paperback copy. Yeah, this is one of the second printings, I think.
Are you sure that someone didn't just like leave their book out on their patio and you stole it? Oh. Anyways,
no, so the cover of my book is black. And it has Ian Fleming's name in this beautiful, like, 60s fuchsia. And mine has a little picture of a girl. She's at the center, and then James Bond is off to the side with a gun. Just a little teeny tiny James Bond.
Oh, yeah, same.
Yeah.
So we probably have just like two variations of the same.
Yeah, except for my back cover came off, so.
I was just thinking, though, he said that she looked like the backside of Venus.
Mm-hmm.
That's a painting. There's only one side.
Yes, he's claiming that if she had a backside, that's what it would look like. Although if there was a backside to that painting, you'd see the back of a shell. So I don't.
And her hair. Her
Yeah.
hair is like covering her butt.
Yeah. Listen,
So...
well, I'm not pretending James is smart because, as we know, he eats and drinks mystery food with wild abandon. Oh, but yeah, speaking of him eating and drinking, I do have one more thing that I just want to bring up that I thought was really interesting and is another reason I want to read the books in between Casino Royale and Dr. No. Do you remember in Casino Royale, James says something that I thought was super interesting. He makes a point of saying that he doesn't like to drink. He doesn't like to have like more than one drink before dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's like one of the big things that he says when he's talking to, I think, Vesper. Like they're trying to go out on their first date or whatever, and he says to her this whole like story about how he only likes to have like one drink before dinner, and then he'll drink at dinner, and then he'll have like one nightcap. This book, James, is an alcoholic.
Yeah.
Like a super alcoholic. Like, James was so strong in his convictions in Casino Royale, and you get to this one, when he gets to the hotel, he has 2 gin and tonics. Once again, some stranger brings him drinks, he drinks it. And then he has another as soon as he gets to the restaurant. Then he has drinks at dinner. It's like, Broham, when he gets to the Dr. No's island, he drinks that entire bottle of whiskey by himself.
Well, I think that could be a reflection on two things. One of it being that James Bond is off right now. So, like, this whole mission was just him kind of getting his groove back. And then the other one is that Ian Fleming, I guess, was supposed to be in very low spirits and in poor health when he wrote it. So it's possible that perhaps James is going through something that Fleming was too at the time.
Yeah.
It's just my guess.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense, comparing it to it. Because it's so sad.
Yeah.
It's just so defeated of James. Like, and that's not, I'm not saying, like, you can't go out and have a drink. You can't have fun. Like, I don't drink during the week. Unlike James Bond, I'm not on constant missions where I'm going to die. So if I want to drink, I drink Friday nights and Saturdays and maybe Sundays, but that's it.
Well, it's also that thing of he's someone who there was a certain amount of discipline to James Bond.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of like to see characters with discipline. Like, and I always talk about Batman, I'm sorry, but there's like the part where Bruce Wayne like tosses the champagne over the ledge.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't drink. He has to be like sharp and ready just in case the bat signal's in the air. Like, you would think that James would need to be sharp and on like his toes at all times. So it makes sense for him to drink, especially socially, so that people see him and they don't think twice about it. And it makes sense for him to have a little bit of something to take the edge off because he probably is running, like, his superhero power is basically anxiety. So it would make sense for him to drink a little bit every now and then. But yeah, to just completely drink a whole bottle of whiskey feels very un-James Bond.
Yeah.
On a mission.
Yeah. I get the scenario that he is in and why you would just feel so defeated that you would drink. But it is so weird to see, once again, book James Bond is a human being that I can imagine he's trained for these scenarios, but at the same time, I don't think you can ever train to be murdered. Whereas...
What?
Yeah, you can't do that. You don't know when it's coming. But, like... I mean, I'm not a psychic. Give me some radioactive shells and we'll see what happens. But in the movies, we never get this sort of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Even after, spoiler alert for those who haven't watched the Daniel Craig ones, even after, Vesper dies, James, he goes through that cycle, but then he's still superhuman. Where
I think he's way more of a human in the Daniel Craig ones.
I don't know. I feel like the book version of James Bond is so human that you know he is injured a whole lot more in these books than he is in the movies.
Yeah.
And you feel that. You're like, oh, he's like, in this book, he gets burnt. Like third degree burns. He gets electrocuted. Like, and then he fights a giant octopus. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy what he puts his body through, considering that his training is naps and sunbathing. Like,
he also had a centipede on his eye.
Yes, he did. Gross. So gross. It just, I don't know. And honestly, that with the centipede, his nervousness about the centipede, I felt that because I would also feel that way. And then when you see the scene with the tarantula, first of all, ugh, gross, not even, bleh, but like, don't even, I have like arachnophobia, I can't do it. He still feels kind of like in control in that scene. Whereas in the book with the centipede, he knows that at any minute he's going to start losing it. He even says, I can't control my heartbeat.
But all of these things are a lot more like temporary, shallow human moments. Like anybody's going to... you put it on Darth Vader's mask, he's still going to be a little freaked out that there's something slimy on his mask. Like I think like his hands being a little clammy in the movie, and then like him being afraid, those are all just temporary fears. There's not like as much of an introspective on existentialism going on.
I don't know. I just feel like James Bond, the book, James Bond, Book Bond, James Book Bond. I feel like he, out of all of the film adaptations, including Daniel Craig, I feel like he feels more realistic as a human being than, because I feel like every time James goes on an adventure, it's supposed to just be like, it's definitely a Gilligan's Island situation. It's just supposed to be a 3-hour tour. Okay. Island of bird poop, you know?
How did they get so lost from a 3-hour tour?
Well, I think a hurricane hit, didn't it? The weather started getting rough. The tiny ship was tossed. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. It was a storm.
I guess maybe the how, more of like, who the fuck was searching for them? You don't get that lost.
Christine.
3 hours in a hurricane.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to Lin-Manuel Miranda that.
3 hours in a hurricane. Madness. Not yet.
Hurricane. Maybe the minnow got to the other side of Dr. No's bird island. Dr. No clearly states no one leaves his... Oh my God, they're on his island. He says no one ever leaves his island.
If we were watching Dr. No and the fucking Gilligan's Island crew showed up, I'd lose my shit.
James is fighting that dragon thing, and like Gilligan pokes his head out through the bushes like, oh, nope, not today.
That is one of my favorite parts, where this whole time Coral's been going like, bro, there's a dragon. And then Honey Ryder is like, listen, there's a dragon. And then there's a part in the movie when you see Sean Connery and she's like, there's a dragon with big scary eyes and it shoots out fire. And then he like looks off to the left like, are you fucking kidding me? These two dum-dums still believe there's a dragon. And then he kind of has this exasperated, like, he kind of like puts his hand up to his like brow and he goes, there's no dragon. Like, he's just exhausted.
Listen, Dr. No didn't spend thousands of dollars for a dragon for one night like Disney did, but whatever.
That dragon, by the way, it looks like something that you would find like you're driving through St. Cloud, Florida, and you take a wrong turn and you kind of end up in like a weird neighborhood. I would not be surprised if I saw a truck painted like that dragon. Yeah. It's not a very well done truck.
It looked like, you know those monster truck rallies where they're just smashing
Yes.
each other. That's what that looked like. Whereas in
Yeah.
the book, the way they talk about it, it's kind of like, whoa, so they like modified something. No, in the movie, they cheaped out so hard. They're just like, here's a
I
couple
laughed
of
out
headlights.
loud, and when it shows up, it's so far away, so it's not even like they did like trick camera work, like maybe putting the camera underneath it, making it look really massive.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just like kind of like this far away shot, and it's just
It's so...
moseying on up.
There are so many things like can we talk about the fish? It Dr. No's giant fish.
Yeah.
You know, they could have just played, instead of adding in that line saying that, oh, the thick glass magnifies the fish, what they could have just said is, hey, did you know that this island's radioactive?
It all feels so silly. It feels like it's a bad guy, and then you find out that the bad guy was Tommy Wiseau. Like, we need all of the scary things. We need octopuses and dragons and like all of this weird stuff that it just comes off as so silly.
I would watch him play Dr. No in a heartbeat. Are you kidding me? Oh, manifesting. It's going to go on like my mood board. Like I'm manifesting this. The way it's described, the way it's described in the book is so good because they're in that elevator and it's just going down and down and down.
I did like that. That was a good build.
Yeah, they talk about how like they don't know where they're going. The guy's hiding the keypad. They don't know if they're ever gonna get out. Honey's holding on to James. She's so scared. And then the door finally opens and they're in this huge room and one whole wall is just he thought it was like a projector. And then they realize, oh my God, we're underwater.
And yeah, I loved that part. And it was really scary because I've like noticed I've got this weird thing about being underwater. It's like probably why I like Titanic so much, but there is something just really scary. Honestly, I'm being serious. Like there's something so scary about it. And that part was scary to me.
Yeah.
Like in the book, I was like, oh, this is honestly like really unsettling. And you even think about like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Even that movie kind of makes you feel a little uncomfortable, even though it's like this lighthearted Disney movie. But then in the movie, when it's just like that big screen and you see fishes, and it doesn't look like you're deep underwater. It looks like you are at like some sort of aquarium attraction at SeaWorld, and he goes, oh, it's false light because we're actually, who knows how many miles down we are from the surface. It just felt like a throwaway line, and it didn't feel scary at all.
I wonder if it would have felt scarier if they had the actual correct film that they were searching for, because that's what happened. They realized they forgot to film fish. So they were like, oh, we'll just go to the film library and pick out a film. Not like they had a film of fish. They were like, great, that'll work. And then when they viewed it, they realized it was a magnetized. It was just close-up shots of fish. I can't with this production. This is so low budget that they didn't even think to themselves, well, let's go back to the production place and find a different film of fish. They were just like, we'll just add in a new line.
See, and I think that's like my problem with the movie is that there are only a few select parts that I actually thought were really cool and fun, and most of them had to deal with the music and the music cues, honestly. Like the opening and when he first shows up, I think both of those are just so iconic and so cool. And then the bulk of everything else made me laugh. Oh my God, wait a minute. I can't believe I forgot to mention this. Nikki.
Yeah.
Felix's sunglasses.
Jesse goes, I'm sorry, who are you?
Felix's sunglasses. I'm like, is this real life? Am I the only one noticing these fucking sunglasses? What is going? No one's talking about the sunglasses.
The thing that gets me about him and those, oh my God, snaps to the props department in those glasses. The thing that gets me is he is following James around the airport, and my eyes immediately went to him first, like, who's the weirdo in the lady shades?
That's exactly what I did.
I thought James was a bad spy. But boy, howdy, you are putting in double duty to claim the top spot, aren't you, Felix?
If you guys haven't seen the movie, to just picture like Cary Grant wearing a suit, and then he's got those, like, they're popular right now, those heart glasses that girls wear that like pull up at the top.
Yeah.
Like those like angled glasses. That's basically what he's wearing. It's so strange.
It is bizarre. And I'm surprised no one said to him anything. Like, I am not going to pretend to be a fashion history major here, but I am certain I've never seen another man wear those glasses in my life.
I've never seen glasses like that before.
The only time I've seen a man wear glasses like that is when my dad lost his sunglasses and he asked to borrow my mom's once. Like, that's it. Like, there's no... I don't understand how anyone let this fly. Did he think he was cool? Like, I
was happy that he was there.
Yeah.
I thought the sunglasses were like the strangest thing and very distracting, but he's not in the book, is he?
No.
Felix? Yeah, okay, I didn't think so, because I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Felix. Oh, okay, cool.
And
that's neat.
I'm so conditioned to think of Felix as how...
Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah. That when this white guy rolls up, I'm like, who are you? And he's like, I'm Felix. And I was like, no, you're not. I know Felix. Trust me, you're not Felix. Please be gone. You're not Felix. But it's funny because Felix shows up here and there in the whole series. All of these James Bond movies, they have a different Felix every time. So maybe that's why I'm so confused. Like, Daniel Craig's the Felix is really the only time we see him played by, like, the same actor
consistently.
Yeah. Those glasses.
I think it is the same actor a couple times in the Brosnan movies, right?
I think so, but not as long as we've...
With Jeffrey Wright,
yeah. It's so... And same thing, I think, with, like, Q. Q's a different actor. I mean, we know Bond changes out in about 7 films.
You know, something that interested me, the director of Dr. No, it is Terrence Young. So he did a bunch of James Bond movies. He also directed this one Audrey Hepburn movie, Wait Until Dark. Have you seen that?
Don't even get me started. I love this movie. Don't even.
It's, okay, Wait Until Dark is this really cool black and white thriller with Audrey Hepburn, and she plays a blind woman. And it's a very cool, very weird movie for its time, because I feel like it feels like a movie that would have been made recently. Like, it doesn't really feel as...
it is timeless. It still has one of the scariest moments on film for me, is in Wait Until Dark.
It's so weird for me that some of the stuff I really didn't like with the movie, and like the whole bit with being underwater and how unscary it is, whereas in the book it is kind of scary. Like, this director did Wait Until Dark. Like, he knows how to do quiet anxiety and like being tense and just being like on the edge of your seat waiting for something to happen. It's strange that like there isn't more of that in here, because that should be more serious in scenes like being underwater or the spider on his face, and instead it feels kind of like campy and a little silly. So I wish that there was more of that in the movie.
Well, I wonder once again if that all goes back to the production company and the fact that James Bond, they're trying out James Bond. Like, I don't know if anyone thought that this would continue, because at the end of the movie, there's none of that James Bond will return, which is at the end of almost every James Bond movie. There's no clue as to whether or not this is a one and done situation or what. So I think that led into it a lot. And speaking of how like weird some of the thing that I found the weirdest was the end of the movie. So happy
with in the boat, and then he like lets go of the rope and then they float back out, which kind of doesn't make any sense.
I'm like, don't you want to go back home and
Yeah.
take a shower.
You guys can fuck in the boat. Like, I don't, like, just get in the ship, get into a nice little room, and then you're not doing it on awkward boards.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
But the music cue for that, too, is very much so upbeat. Like, the music throughout the whole film is very, like, tense, sexy, James Bond, and then all of a sudden it's like, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, we're gonna have sex in a boat, ba-da-da. Like, it was like, what? And it's like, is that... So it was like a buddy comedy? Like, I'm confused now.
Well, and in the book, it still ends on Honey and James having sex, but it's right after she mentions the bit about changing her nose and how Bond says, like, oh, you look fine. But then the last comment is actually her being in charge.
Yeah.
It's, she says, take those off and come in. You promised. You owe me slave time, which take that with a grain of salt. And then he says, and then she says, do as you're told.
Yeah.
I love that she's actually like taking the...
Oh, yeah, she's taking control. Because she asks him earlier in the book, she's like, won't your wife miss you? And he's like, I'm not married. And she's like, well, isn't there a girl? And he was like, well, there's been lots of girls. And she's like, cool, I see how this is going. And she also calls him out about the call girl situation where she's like, well, how much... He talks about... James Bond knows a lot about call girls, about all the trouble she could get into and how much it would cost to have to pay off the police and pay off this person and pay off that person. And she's like, well, how much would you pay? And he's like, well, it's been a while since I've done that.
I don't know what the going rate is.
And she's
days.
like, wow, it must be so easy for you. You just get it when you want it. You don't have to pay for it. I was like, oh, Honey, so far, is my favorite Bond girl. She is sassy.
Yeah.
She is dumb, but she is sassy.
Well, I mean, even her wanting to be a call girl, like, that's really not a joke. I mean, like, depending on where she's at, and her options right now are to just grow old and die on this island, sell seashells, or maybe make probably triple what she can make selling the seashells being a call girl. Like, it's an understandable option for her to try and get out.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, it's kind of funny because you would normally want to, persecute the woman for wanting to be a call girl, yet the hero of these stories has had call girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to question James Bond for hiring one, but you are probably going to question the call girl herself.
And that's why I love that she called him out.
Exactly.
Because it's, even now, like, if you think about sex workers, they're getting arrested and thrown in jail and being prosecuted for their actions, but we're not throwing the people in jail who are paying for them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, interesting. So it's nice to have someone like Honey stand up against James.
Well, that's the funny thing, is that it's like, if they're going after a certain guy, the easy thing to do is wait for him to engage with a sex worker.
Yeah.
So, like, usually when they get them, it's for stuff like that. Whereas when they go and they throw a sex worker in jail, they're not exactly trying that hard to figure out who engaged her services, because it's going to lead to a bunch of rich, powerful men, and they're not going to go after them.
Yeah, no one wants to go after James Bond.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I don't even remember how much they cost.
Unless you're a centipede. What did he do to the centipedes?
What do you mean?
I mean, they just seem to have a vendetta out for him.
Well, no, they put it in his room, remember?
No, I think the centipede acted on his own volition.
It's like, this is for my mother. You dirty rat.
Well, as we come down to the end of our Dr. No discussion, is there anything that we haven't discussed yet that you wanted?
No, I feel like we hit a lot of the main targets. I mean, racism, sexism, possible gigantism. We covered the whole spectrum.
Octopuses.
Yeah. You know what? Okay, maybe there is one thing. When the giant octopus shows up in the book and James has to fight the octopus off, previously in the book, they eat at a restaurant owned by a guy who fought an octopus. For some reason, I thought James was going to call back to that and be like, if he could do it, I can do it. Do you know what I mean?
I wish that guy showed back up like, all right, this is the day.
He's like, who's the guy who helps Rocky out in the Rocky movies who's just training him? I thought he was going to be like, okay, James, you can do this. Come on. Come on.
There's like instead of the 80s montage of him just swimming naked, it's him preparing to fight an octopus.
Yeah. Ba-da-da. Dodged. It's just, it felt like such a weird thing to have a character at the beginning of the book have done what James has to do later on and then not talk about it. Like,
now I want kind of like in Dodgeball when he's like, if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball. Like, if you could dodge 4 kids with 8 arms, then you can dodge an octopus.
We're going to remake Dr. No. It's going to be fabulous.
It's going to be so good.
Real good. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think the last thing I had was Felix's sunglasses. So that very important topic has been talked about.
Okay, well, Christina, which was better for you, the book or the movie?
It's so hard because I think the book is a better book than Dr. No is a movie. Mm-hmm. But Dr. No being the first James Bond movie still has like an important place. Yeah. And like the music cues and everything are just so much fun. And when certain stuff happens, it's just the beginning of so much that it feels really important. Yeah. So, like, I recommend both, but I probably like the book more. Yeah,
I would agree. And it's funny because I found the book to be kind of boring in some parts.
Same.
There's a lot of science-y stuff and, like, I don't want to read that. I've only made it up to T in the encyclopedia. This was hard. But I liked...
Yeah, playing Baccarat's not going to bore me, but hearing about bird poop turning into fertilizer will.
And that was what I found so interesting was that I devoured Casino Royale in, like, it didn't take me any time at all to read that book. But this one, I was like, are we really going back to talking about bird poop again? Like, I really can't. Is James still in those tunnels? Like, yippee-ki-yay, just get out, you know? I was kind of bored by it. But I like Honey in the book so much more in the movie. So I would definitely side with the book just a little bit, even though it's difficult to read, you know, not just for the sciencey bit, for the weird use of language and how they describe individuals in this book. I would probably pick the book over the movie.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame that they didn't, like, go back to Honey Rider in a different movie because she could have been a really cool on-screen character.
Yeah, I think she would have been a very strong adversary for James.
And even, like, I'm even cool. You make it a little bit truer to the book. Like, she shows up naked. Which is very, very much like James Bond swimming naked. Yeah. Like, you allude to that at some point when he's in his training, and then she shows up, and you don't have to see everything, but do it as implied nudity that she's coming out of the water naked. I mean, that's a very cool opening for a Bond girl. And then but then you have everything else where she's still a strong character. She stands up to James Bond and Dr. No. It's very cool.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's time to determine which Bond is better. I mean, we decided it was going to be Battle of the Bonds. I mean, which Bond is the better Bond?
I think we're going to disagree.
I think we are too. I knew we were going to disagree when I brought it up earlier. I was like, oh, okay.
I think we disagree. I think we have to agree to disagree. Yeah. I say Daniel Craig.
I
say Daniel Craig.
Jesse and I had this same exact conversation last night when we were both talking about it because I was like, I knew this was going to come up. And he said something super interesting that I agree with. I think that if we could put Sean Connery in the newer James Bond movies, I think it would be an unstoppable James Bond. Like, the writing for the new movies, but Sean Connery plays James Bond.
I disagree. I don't think that he has the acting range that Daniel Craig does.
I don't know.
Wait, when did he have the acting range that Daniel Craig does?
Have you
What
seen
movie?
Darby O'Gill and the Little People?
Yeah, I love Darby O'Gill and the Little People, and he's one of the worst parts.
Shut up. That's how he got the job for Dr. No.
Which is strange. That's weird.
Why are you looking at a guy in Darby O'Gill and the Little People being like, he's hot, make him James Bond?
He's not even British.
No, he's not.
So it's funny because when people were losing their shit over a blonde James Bond, you've got, at least he's British with piercing eyes, whereas Sean Connery only has one out of those three.
Oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, Sean Connery's Scottish. He's not even Irish. What was he doing in Darby O'Gill and the Little People?
He's a liar.
That's what makes him a great actor. He is both British and Irish and Scottish.
Well, and here's the thing. Like, I don't care if you're from a different place and you're doing an accent.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. But Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man sounds like he's from New York. Sean Connery still sounds like he's from Scotland. You can't hide that brogue very well.
No. I like that we both have a different Bond in mind.
Yeah.
I like this because I think that what I like about this is that even though we've picked different winners in this battle, we both like James Bond, period.
Yeah, even though, like, I complained about Dr. No, it was still, like, I was smiling.
Yeah.
Like, the silliness of it, I enjoy. Like, don't get me wrong. I still loved watching Dr. No, and I can complain about it, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. Like,
Yeah.
I still liked it, and I'll still watch it again.
Like, I definitely want to get the entire James Bond book collection. And
Same.
I know that later on down the line, you know, they just take the title. They don't even take the storyline. I get that. But I want to I want to read all the books. I want to rewatch all the movies in order. And I feel like I'm not going to have a bad time doing either of those things.
You know what I think we do? I think that, like, we don't do it as rigid, like, okay, we're doing this book and we're doing this movie. But maybe at some point, whether it's this year or next year, we can have an episode where we just touch back on, like, how far you and I have gotten in reading and watching the other stuff.
Yeah.
And just, like, our takeaways from it. Because I think that both of us have that plan. And it's, like, a fairly easy plan. I mean, the paperbacks are pretty cheap. I even found, like, they have them free online. Like, there's a lot of different
really?
websites. Yeah, there's different websites where it's basically stolen, but who cares? Like,
Well, I was just going to say, on Etsy, you can buy, like, 40 James Bond books for $20. Like,
yeah, that's not hard.
Yeah.
And then, like, the Bond films, I made a mistake because Dr. No was actually on TV a couple weeks ago and I didn't record it, so I had to rent it, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like they're always on. They're always streaming
Yeah.
somewhere.
yeah, it's not... James Bond's never going away.
No.
It's just going to continue to get crazier and better, or maybe not better. Maybe he goes to the moon. You know, it just gets it's just going to continue. It's always going to be there. So it's a, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's undying. It's forever in our lexicon.
Yeah. It's a collection of films that you're never not going to find it on TV.
The only thing that I find so funny about it is that James Bond is not a hero, really, and he's not a happy person. So it's just funny to me that so many men look at James Bond as being like, oh, man's man, that's a guy. And he's unhappy.
Yeah.
And he's kind of fucked up, and he goes through a lot of different stuff, because even though everything I loved about Casino Royale, like, it's not as far, like, you still get stuff from James Bond.
Yeah. Yeah, Bond goes to work every day very, like, grudgingly. Like, oh, man.
Same shit, different day.
Yes. Poor James.
At least this week won't be as bad as last week. Oh, no.
He sounds like the dinosaurs in the Flintstones. He's just like, it's a living. Like,
It's a living.
he just shot 2 guys, and he's been, like, poisoned and electrocuted, and he just turns to the camera and goes, it's a living.
TGI Friday, am I right?
Yeah.
It's like soulless.
Oh, goodness. We've had a massive upset
Yes.
to the book list. And
We had a brawl.
we did. We fought. We fought it out.
We fought. It was really bad.
Yeah. I'm so sorry about your nose, Christina.
I'm not sorry about anything.
Whoa.
Oh.
Dang. That's fine.
I said what I said.
Mm-hmm. Listen, just because Sean Connery was my pick was no need to be rude.
Oh, no, it's perfectly clear to me what you think, Nikki.
You can't see me right now, but I am putting on my Felix sunglasses. So here we go. The new and improved, but still awesome, forever and ever, non-radioactive book list. Staying at number 1 is Casino Royale. It's our new Rosemary's Baby. Coming in at number 2, Dr. No. And then here we go. Coming in at number 3, we have The Commitments. What? Number 4, Cinderella. 5, Bridget Jones. And 6, our other favorite book set in Jamaica, How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I really did love Stella. It breaks my heart to see it go down on the list, but...
I mean, I think it's kind of cool. You look and it's 6 books and 6 recommendations that I would make to people. So
Yeah.
It's a pretty good list so far.
It is crazy. Like, none of these books really... They're all so different.
Yeah.
Even between Casino Royale and Dr. No, completely different books.
They really are. They're very different books. They're very different.
Well, it's time to leave Bond behind.
Aww.
Yeah. But it's springtime, and we're coming up to April. We all know what happens in April, right?
It's your birthday.
Yeah, but it's also Jesus' birthday. That's not true. It's the resurrection of Christ. It's completely different, but whatever.
Allegedly.
It's the day for chocolate.
You only live twice.
YOLO, but not. Anyways, Yoto. Anyways, it's one of the biggest chocolate producing holidays of the year. It's coming up, Christina.
Yes, it is.
And we're gonna celebrate it the only way we know how.
I'm actually really excited. I forgot this was the next story.
Oh, really? I did not. I've been pumped about this. We're doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Well,
Nikki,
Willy
I'll be
Wonka and
honest. I
Chocolate
started
Factory.
reading the book that's
Yeah.
after that. I messed up.
Oh,
But that's fine because Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I already own it. It's very small. It takes me like a day to read it, so it's fine. But I think thank God we announce things at the end of the episode.
See, we don't just do it for you. We do it for us, too.
And your loser podcast host
Yeah.
like me.
Sorry, everybody. She's been licking those radioactive seashells.
No, now I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Yay! That is what we're doing.
Yeah,
next.
we're celebrating chocolate by doing Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, that's a totally different book than what we just did.
Oh, yeah. We are going straight from, like, murder and villains to chocolate.
I don't think that like Willy Wonka's nose is weird because he was raped a few years ago and he's talking about surgery on it. It's a much different tone.
I cannot wait to get into this because I've got some feelings about Grandpa Joe that I need the world to hear, and now I have the soapbox to do it on.
Well, I will take any excuse to watch Gene Wilder more,
Yes.
so this is going to be fun.
Oh, yes, let's clarify. That is the movie we are watching. There is no other version. I don't know why people keep asking us if we're going to watch the other version. I don't know what other version. That's like saying there's a third Godfather. My God, because you guys are so stupid. Maybe you guys are living in some weird, like, radioactive seashell universe, but these things don't exist.
You know, I'll say this too. We just talked about the book ranking for 2022, and these books need to have a little bit of they need to be nervous because Charlie and the Chocolate Factory has an adaptation.
Yeah.
Let's find out how it goes.
I'm excited.
It's a contender.
I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody. Yeah, you still can, Willie. Coming up. Don't worry about it. So yeah, I am excited. Will I eat chocolate during that episode? Only time will tell. You're just gonna hear.
We're definitely going to get some chocolate.
Are we gonna have the magic gold bar from RuPaul's Drag Race? Who knows?
God,
Maybe we will.
That bar is really stressing me out.
It's been here the whole time with us, waiting for our next episode.
Yes.
Spoiler alert, we've been saved from elimination.
What if we put Willy Wonka down at the bottom of the book list and then we have it open the magic chocolate bar?
It's just chocolate.
It's just chocolate.
It's just chocolate.
It's just chocolate.
Yeah. And with that, thank you all for joining us on our big Bond battle bonanza. Hey, look at that one! I did it. Very proud of myself.
Your alliteration.
Yes, it's easier than she sells seashells. I can do it. Big Bond battle bonanza.
Nice.
Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe. Thanks again, as always, to Jessie, our Q, who makes us sound so nice.
Thank you, Q.
Thank you, Q. And thanks, as always, to Christina. Thank you.
Aw. Thank you, Nikki. I would go hunting for radioactive seashells with you.
Yeah, they're worth $50 in Miami.
I love it.
Well, we have to bid you all adieu. We've got some $50 seashells to go find. So we'll see you next time with Willy Wonka. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.